the advertising field and has been in this since past many decades. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us once again.
My pleasure, Kailash. Who
So
can say no to you? Who can say no to you?
That's very kind of you, sir. So you have been a media veteran and one of the most respected figures when it comes to advertising, especially. The recent backlash on the social media over the Tanishq ad sends out a very disturbing message. Your views on it, sir?
It is a very disturbing message. I think my personal views are that, creativity shouldn't stifle. I mean, I think people are spending more time on, in fact, today, if you should see, I've tweeted an article written by Anant Rangaswamy, very nice article. The thing is very simple. Issues like this, I think we are paying too much importance of bringing religion and things like that. It's just a creative thing, but you have to look at the intent behind the ad. The intent behind the ad was to unify people, to bring social harmony. That's the thing. I mean, if people start reacting like this, then movies like Amar Akbar Anthony wouldn't have happened. So I think you should let creative freedom, as long as it's not harming somebody. You should let it free. And I think the onus in this kind of a situation is the company shouldn't have withdrawn the ad just because of a few trolls. But I understand where they come from, so I empathize with them. But I also think it's the job of the state to provide security in such cases.
Mm-hmm. So you believe that naturally this ad sends out a very good message, and it is quite unfortunate that because of just some media trolling, it had to be pulled out.
It's very unfortunate. I mean, we can't look at everything from a prism of religion and this and that. You have to look at it for the intent that it was, and look at some of the great ads we've done in the past as well. I mean, nobody bothered. It's only now, people have started reacting to things, and so I think I feel it's sad. It's really.
Why do you feel that?
I love that ad. I love that ad. Pardon?
Why do you feel that people have started reacting now?
I don't know. I really don't have an answer to that. I think one of the things about social media is it's a free for all, and I don't know whether you've seen this show called Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, there could be 20 vested interests wanting to create animosity between people or things like that. But I feel sad. I mean, I can't say much. There's nothing I could do about it, but I really feel sad because, this is the time when there's pandemic, when people are going through all kinds of things. I think this is the time when people should come together. Humanity is always bigger than everything else. And that's my personal belief.
Sure. And something like this, stifling creativity does not send out a good message.
More than stifling creativity, I think what was wrong with that ad? I still haven't understood what was wrong with that ad. I mean, you can find fault with anything if you want. It all depends on which prism you look at it. I remember there was an ad, I think, of a red label chai, if I'm correct, where there was a person who, from a particular religion, who was making Ganapatis. And the person who goes to buy, he looks at him doing his prayers, and he decides not to buy, and then he says, have a tea, and then, he buys the Ganpati and goes back. I mean, these are all very nice messages. What you're talking about bringing people together.
True.
And anything that unites the human race anywhere in the world, I think is a good thing. That's my personal belief.
Absolutely, sir. So you did head a leading general entertainment channel as its CEO for many years, Colors. Now, what is your take on, one particular aspect that is now coming in the media these days, that today's youth do not want to be on TV because of the regressive storylines that are showcased in our daily soaps when it comes to the GEC channels? What is your take on these aspects of it, and whom do we actually make finally content for? Is it just for the TRPs, and what is your take on it?
This question has come to me even when I was in Colors. So, but let me tell you something. End of the day, whether it's television or whether it's cinema, it reflects what's happening in society. Any businessman will cater to what is selling, and what is selling more, he will create more of it, right? Television didn't have real competition to that extent. People compared a show on Z, Star, Sony, Colors, or Sub TV or whatever it is, and that was the arena with people were playing. Suddenly, now you have great shows coming on OTT platforms, right? So the people have suddenly got exposed to a different kind of programming, and their taste buds are changing, right? It's like this. Years ago, if anybody told you eat sushi or sushi restaurants, no, people would have said pagal ho gaya kya? But it was not available. But once it becomes available, people's taste buds change. Like Chinese food, people's taste buds change. So I think now what will happen is, still television is very, very, very strong for the simple reason it's about 190 million households, and it's still got a headroom for another 60 million households, 250 million households, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there is a big headway. And internet penetration, for all said and done, still isn't really, it's growing. Jio has played a big role in taking it, but still bandwidth problems and things are there. Even in places like Bombay, we have bandwidth problems.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that is an issue. And all the OTT platforms, in terms of actual reach, they're still not nowhere close. So for some time it will happen, but what will happen is, if television doesn't change, make slight changes to their content, over a period of time, the migration will happen, the cord cutting will happen. And second thing is, before there was broadcasting was seen as a separate medium, OTT was seen as separate, things like that. I think that lines are blurring now, because you can watch everything on your TV. You watch Netflix on your TV, you watch Amazon on your TV, you watch Hotstar on your TV. So actually, everything is coming into the same dabba. Okay.
You have your smart TV, you have your smart boxes, everything.
Yeah. So the future is not going to be OTT or TV. Nobody gives a shit. Okay. It's a method of delivery, right? For a consumer, he's looking at, मेरे को छोटे डब्बे में देखना है, बड़े डब्बे में देखना है, उससे बड़ा डब्बे में देखना है, मेरे को बड़ा पर्दे में देखना है. And that is what is going to happen. And he's going to, if all different things are available to him, he's going to choose what appeals to him, what caters to him, and what he likes, he or she likes.
So finally, at the end of the day, naturally, जैसे एक बहुत पुरानी कहावत है कि ग्राहक देख के पुड़िया बांधी जाती है. So it is, and I remember, one of my conversations with you when I visited in the Colors office, and it was a very interesting thing that we were discussing, and you just told me that, whenever the heads from Viacom come, I just pull the curtain over and I tell them, नीचे देखो, नीचे दिखता है, Hutmans, content उनके लिए बनता है. So whatever we talk in the room, content उनके लिए बनता है. That is the real, your television viewing audience.
Masses. Television is masses, so that's what you cater for. But there is a difference between masses, and you can be masses and classes. You can manage both. And some of the shows we did, for example, that transcended both masses and classes was, say, when we did in Colors, when we were, and of course it's continued on, Comedy Nights with Kapil. Yes. We were the people who actually, before that, Kapil Sharma was on television for 10 years, but nobody really knew him. But until we packaged him and created a show, and everything changed, right? Changed for him and changed for the channel and for everybody. Everybody, it was a win-win situation. And when we did a show like 24, again, it was for classes, because that
was like an OTT show on television.
Pardon?
It was like an OTT show for television. If you in today's
it was way ahead of its time. In fact, if you go and see the production values, I would say would put any of even the recent shows to shame in terms of real production values. It was ahead of its time, but in actual numbers, it has reached more people than simple reason because it was on TV, right? And so the thing is, now what has happened is, it's important that also, I can understand the challenges that broadcasters face. It's a catch-22 situation. It's a question of also, if you see all the OTT shows, they are 26 episodes, 14 episodes, 10 episodes, things like that, and the production costs are very high. True. And especially with the things like Amazon and Netflix, it's not an advertising-led model. It's a subscription-led model. Television, it's opposite. So there is a, ROI that you have to get. So your budget for a show cannot be beyond a certain cost, right? And that is a challenge and I think that model needs to change slightly. People need to move away from doing 250 episodes, 500 episodes, and 1,000 episodes of the same show. I think what will happen is television in India will move slightly to the US model, which I believe will happen, where you'll have seasons. We tried it in colors. When I was there, we did Nagin, for example. We did Kavach. We did quite a few shows where we tried doing.
Those are still continuing in the season form, like Nagin 5 is on air.
Yeah, seasons. Then what happens is it does two things for you. One is you are able to increase your budgets. Okay. And also you're not blocking your time for a long term. So if the show doesn't do well, you can replace it with another one. And if the franchise works, you can go on doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we did that. But I would like to believe more and more channels at some point will have to move to the season model of, it's not easy to do overnight because there's a certain pattern, but slowly that gradual transition needs to happen. And I believe that the channel that takes that first step in the long run is going to be the winner.
Sure. So that's how you see the future of television in India, that it has to somewhere ape the West model.
Not ape, I would say. It becomes more practical. Also, what happens is all the broadcasters today have their own OTT platforms.
Yes.
Right? Right now, what is happening is in most cases, it is catch-up content that's coming on OTT. In some cases, they are first premiering it on OTT and then on air. Right? But again, within themselves, from what I've seen, the content creation is happening separately for TV and separately for OTT.
Yes.
There is nobody sitting and saying, how can I marry the two? Right? Not everything can be married or should be married, but nobody is looking at it from that prism. And I think it's very important because when you're talking about, every technology being integrated, content also, you need to find that fine balance where you can leverage cost between television, OTT, or any other forms of distribution. The way to look at thing is return of investment per minute of content. That's the way you need to look at it. That's the way you need to look at the business.
Sure. But these days what's happening is also, even though, as you said, that the major 4 broadcasters have their own OTT platforms,
Not
more than the originals, and others also have. But more than the originals, people come to view that the television soaps on that.
That's true. I mean, I know that. But
the originals, yes, they create a certain niche for themselves. But as far as the 4 major broadcasters,
number viewing, some of the old shows have, I don't know now, but when I was there and we used to get some data in Woot at that time, some of the shows which on television didn't give us TRPs, we pulled off the show. For name one show, I'll name Na Bole Tum or something like that. Of that name, it was a love story. On Woot, people would come and come. I mean, there were 1 or 2 other shows. I think finally we decided, I don't remember the names of the show. We decided we won't do it on air. We'll do it only on digital. So what happens? It happens. That's what you're saying is true. It happens.
Absolutely. Mr. Nayak, off late, the news genre has been under a lot of criticism for broadcasting anything but news. They have been under the scanner for provoking hatred as well as they're getting the rating points. Major advertisers have come out and thought of pulling their business from the news channels. Your thoughts on the same?
I don't blame them. I mean, because one of the things is today all brands speak brands with a purpose. One of the biggest thing is advertising. If you go back, is it's all about medium is the message. In whose company you're seen. That's very important. And if there is toxicity and if there is fake news or if there is hate, would you want to be associated with something like that? Let me ask you, Kanchan, would you like to be, Kailash, let me ask you, would you like to be associated with anything that has toxicity?
Naturally, no. Like if I'm an advertiser and if I'm promoting my brand, naturally associating myself with someone where I feel that, maybe I could get the eyeballs, maybe I could get the CPRP or whatever, those barometers. But
the thing is, it is not that you can't get it without that, right?
Of course, you could get it on any other medium.
I mean, supply-demand ratio is like unbelievable, right? Especially the news genre. Yeah. So given that, you would want to play a safer bet. And let me give you, this is a true example, okay? I don't want to name the brand. I wanted something. And my wife does all the buying in my house, especially on digital. She buys all the groceries and all. I said, just include this for me. I just want this. I just sent her a WhatsApp. And nowadays in the house, we also talk on WhatsApp and messages. That's reality of life. So I sent her a message saying, when you're ordering your stuff, please order this. She said, sorry. So my first reaction was maybe she's sorry because of diet restriction or something like that. She said, no, this brand I don't want to. They're supporting toxic news. I don't want to think. I'll order it from another brand. And this happened in my house. So, and she was very vocal about it. I said, yaar, main to in logon ke saath dhanda vanda karta hu. Tum chup baitho. Tumko nahi lena hai, mat lo. But that's a reality. And I'm sure many people are thinking like that. Because somewhere your moral conscience and your moral compass cannot be compromised.
Sure. So somewhere, the steps that have been taken by the major advertisers is a bold step, but you feel that
very bold
somewhere
step.
The line should have been drawn.
Somewhere you say enough is enough, na?
True.
And I don't know what is right, what is wrong. Okay. But one thing I know, I've been part of the news business for many, many, many years, television news business, right? And I really feel sad the way it has changed, the way it has, deteriorated over a period of time. I wouldn't paint everybody with the same brush, but you don't need to, even if there are few, but they can spoil the whole environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Responding to this, naturally, Bark, under the head of technical verification, of course, has suspended ratings of news channels for about 2-3 months. What kind of effect do you see on their business now? If you look at the business aspect, with no ratings for 3 months, how would advertisers react?
I don't think business is going to get impacted. I don't think so at all. We've had many occasions in the past when ratings have been suspended. Actually, whole industry ratings have been suspended and things like that. It's not just a genre. So what actually usually happens in this kind of scenario is there may be some advertisers who may move out of news genre, but it's festive season now, so I doubt anybody will move because it's it's an effective impact medium to advertise on. So what will happen is and usually people don't do knee-jerk reactions. It's your planning doesn't happen today and you don't buy tomorrow. It's not an impulse purchase. There's a planning process there, and the data that you normally rely on is the past 8 weeks data.
Past 8-12 weeks, yes.
Yeah, past 8 weeks data. So they will rely on that data and it will continue. By the time 2 months, maybe one extra month, they'll continue with the same data and they will use it to negotiate. Okay, on both sides, they will use it to negotiate to get the best out of each other. But I don't think it impacting major.
So business will continue, but naturally some minor deflections.
Yeah, some client may go off, some new client may come in, and those things may happen.
Those things. Now with IPL, with your KBC, big ticket brands coming back on television, how do you now forecast advertising coming back to television? Like the path to recovery, which we saw was a major dent in the first 6 months of COVID.
Yeah. I think IPL was a big boost that came in terms of actual revenue. Okay. The other two events which have been big in terms of at least big, what I call as the tentpole events. The tentpole events is KBC definitely, and I think Big Boss. Okay, yes. These are another two tentpole events that I haven't been following closely, but I can tell you. I don't know the actual value. IPL I know definitely has got probably same value or more value, at least the television broadcasting part, not the on-ground part. But Big Boss and KBC, I really don't know whether they've got the same value as they got in previous years. Okay, but the fact is that at least it has brought things back on the go. And I was speaking to a colleague of mine, ex-colleague of mine, and inventory is full on every channel.
Inventory is full, yes.
Inventory is full on every channel. So given that, I hope things come back and come. It's desperately needed for the industry, needed for the economy. My only worry is, now everything is opening up. And I'm only worried that hope things don't take another turn where we have another lockdown. I hope that doesn't happen. But if otherwise, I think we are on the recovery mode.
Absolutely. Now it's time we take some questions. There are a lot of budding aspirants who are there, who want to learn from you, who want to learn from your experience, and we'll take them. Pragya, can we have the first question, please?
Actually, when I do these sessions, I learn from the youngsters,
Learning is always two-way.
Yeah, we have Shreya with us. First question she will take. Shreya, you can switch on your camera and mic and ask the question.
Hi, Shreya. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
I'm fine.
Sir, I wanted to ask, as you said about the Tanishq ad, I wanted to ask that how, as an advertising agency, when you receive backlash for an ad that you made, although the brand gets the backlash, but how does an advertising agency recover or retract that backlash?
The advertising agency, do you know who's the advertising agency that did the Tanishq ad?
No.
Exactly. So, but the thing is, the agency is appointed by the client, and end of the day, the final approval, the stamp of approval is of that of the client. Okay, so there is a buy-in from both parties, and it's always like that in reality of life. The front-facing face gets all the flack, and in this case, it happens to be Tanishq.
Okay.
Thank you, Shreya. Can we have the next question, Pragya, please?
Yes, we have a question from Mayur Madhvi.
What kind of shift can be expected to occur in the next step of marketing in modern era after this pandemic?
I don't think there's going to be some major shift as such, but marketing over a period of time has been evolving. A lot of things have been happening. A lot of shift has happened on the digital side of business and things like that. I think that trend will continue, but I don't think any major shift is going to happen just because of the pandemic. No, because people will come back, all traditional media and everything will come back to normal. But one area where I see where newspapers, the print industry does have a huge challenge post the pandemic, because a lot of people have got used to the idea of not physically reading the newspapers, and that's going to be a challenge to bring them back. That's going to be a challenge. But other than that, all forms of media will continue. Yeah, people will start as digital becomes more and more important, monies will shift and things like that. And another thing which has happened now is you can directly communicate today. One of the things that has happened is whether it's content or communication, it has got democratized. An individual today has 3 million followers, 4 million followers, and those kind of things will get exploited. But other than that, I don't see any major transition happening.
A very interesting fact that you mentioned, sir, is about newspapers. And yesterday evening I was discussing with someone at my place. The last newspaper that I saw was, I think, before the Janta curfew. And I've just lost the habit of calling for a newspaper.
Yeah.
So the future of print
is going to be very challenging. For me, the thing came from, people like us are still evolved. My friend of mine, she's a Gujarati. Her father, 2 newspapers every day for 50, 60 years, whatever. He's an old man now, 60 years maybe, has been, I wouldn't say old, but he's elderly, 60 years. She said he went through a withdrawal symptoms for a few days, and that's it. Now she's saying the society has allowed us to bring the newspaper. He's saying nahi chahiye.
Habit formation.
He's saying मेरे को न्यूज़ खबर मिल रहा है अभी, मेरे को डिजिटल में मिल रहा है, इसमें मिल रहा है, उसमें मिल रहा है, मेरे को जरूरत नहीं,
मेरे को पेपर नहीं चाहिए.
नहीं चाहिए.
That calls for some kind of an alarm bell for print, because naturally when the lockdown happened, advertising was down. How do you see the revival of the sector of a segment of Indian M&E, which is the second largest still after television?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a challenge, and I don't have an answer for it. But you can't put blinkers and say it's all going to be hunky dory. But newspaper business used to be a highly profitable business, especially for the leaders, hugely profitable. So, but it may not be the same, but there is still that charm of the printed word. But that is more for people like our generation. But the next generation, my daughters and all, they don't even look at a newspaper. They have access to Wall Street Journal. They got New York Times, Times of India, India Today, everything on their phone. So they're saying, why should I restrict myself to newspapers when I can read 40 newspapers and get the most of it? And now you have apps that will also curate it for you based on your interest.
There's artificial intelligence working.
Of course. So that's the thing. So it is a challenge, and all newspapers are moving into the digital mode. And I know that even in India, almost everybody has the digital format. Now, the challenge there is they have to quickly get into a mode where subscription plays a big role, because otherwise the economics won't work.
True. I think we have Lekha on screen to ask a question to Sir. Pragya, can we have Lekha?
Yes, hi. So the question which I had is that usually audiences talk about the brand or the product having a good advertisement, but not the ad agency that was behind it. So how does an ad agency make its name and leave a mark in the market?
See, the consumer, actually making a name with the consumer really doesn't matter. But sometimes, but within the industry, there are a lot of things. We have something called the FEs, which is an event which happens for effectiveness in advertising, where case studies are there, and then winners are chosen, brands are chosen. Then we have something called the MVs for the best media innovation, media planning, things like that. And there are lots of other awards that happens, which is judged by eminent people in the industry, both nationally and internationally. So that becomes their stamp, when they win an award, or they get appreciation from the client. The client says, yes, this campaign has really taken our sales to another level. So, and also when a good ad campaign happens, people start talking about it. You also talk about it. You say, "Acha, maine ye Airtel ka ad dekha tha, bahut acha ad tha." And then what happens is, within the fraternity, everybody speaks to each other. "Acha, kiska ad hai?" Now, I'm sure half the industry, everybody knows Tanishq ad, which agency has done it, and things like that, right? So, but that's the thing. But a student, if they want to make an effort, the beauty about information today is you just need to Google. There is one magic wand called Google. Usko tap tap kar do, aapko 1 minute mein mil jayega ki kisne kiya, art director kaun tha, creative copy kisne likha, sab mil jata hai. So that's how they make a name for themselves. And especially in this business, in any creative business, word of mouth is a bigger publicity than anything else.
Word of mouth is big. And then naturally within the industry, it is something, that naturally the name of the agency never comes out for a consumer. But within the industry, we all know ki ye account kiske paas hai ya kisne.
No, but look at it. Badai Ho is a good movie. Unka publicity budget kya hoga? Kuch nahi. Aur bade movies aaye, itna kharcha kiye, and just flopped, right? And Badai Ho, nobody expected, suddenly zoop, went through the roof. So that's the thing. Plays a very big role in creative business.
Sure. I think, Pragya, we have Parul.
Parul Sharma with us. Yeah. Parul, you can ask your question.
Hello, sir. So my question is, when you started work, so what are the ups and downs you have seen in your work?
Lots of ups and lots of downs. Okay, but I think, you shouldn't get too bogged down by your ups and downs, because let me tell you, a lot of leaders won't give credit to something called luck. Most leaders won't do that, because they feel that if they say luck played a role in my career graph, it takes away from all the hard work that people do. That's not true. Just hard work or intelligence doesn't get you there. Okay, that plays a role. But if it's only hard work, then the guy who pulls the Adhikari works harder than you and me. And there are far more intelligent people, or people who have got distinction from some of the best institutes and still haven't made it in life. So it's a combination of everything. My first advice, or not an advice, I'm nobody to give you an advice, but a suggestion is, you should pick a career And sometimes you should pick a career that you are passionate about. And sometimes when you feel, you feel I want to do this. And when you get in there, you realize maybe I'm not enjoying it. The day you're not enjoying it, quit it. The moment you do something that you love, automatically you will give your 100% and the job will give you back 100%. And that's how the relationship will happen and you'll grow up the ladder. And don't start chasing success, because there's nothing called chasing success. You have to put your head down, give it your 100% shot. And yeah, you may win the game, lose the game. And I have a very simple philosophy that I use, especially now that I've started my business and we are pitching to clients. I tell the team, I said, I'm not bothered if you get the business or don't get the business. I just want to make sure that you did everything right and pitched right. Okay, if you win the game, we'll think that we won Wimbledon. If you don't win the game, we played the game. So practice match ho gaya.
But sir, when you just entered in the market, so just to take up position to stand in market, what step did you have taken in at first?
I'll be very honest. I mean, I had no clue what I wanted. You guys are lucky. At least in your case now, you have an advantage of deciding हमको क्या करना चाहिए, क्या नहीं करना चाहिए. जब हम बड़े हो रहे थे, the only thing was नौकरी मिल जाए बस. Okay, and those days we used to go through the Times of India classified column, appointment pages, and mark, and then you say, and that was how it was, right? We didn't have a choice. And mostly when you're growing up, either you, especially I come from Karnataka, Mangalore. In my family, everybody are bankers. But other than that, that also you got into a bank because some chairman was a relative of yours or something like that. But otherwise, you actually became an engineer, doctor, and in probably a little more evolved families, the children went to IAS or IFS. Okay. But other than that, if you came from a family which could afford it, you became an engineer or a doctor because donations were very high that time. And for people like us who had neither, so then you spoke to, depending on who in your family was doing very well, koi chacha kai ye ho raha hai, uske paas jaake पूछो, advice पूछो कि मेरे को क्या करना चाहिए, and that is how it used to be. And he would say, तू diploma कर दे इसमें, तू ये कर दे, वो कर दे, and that is how advice used to be. So in my thing, I never ever dreamt that I would get into media and entertainment. That was not my plan. I'd come to Bombay looking for a job, and I just got the job. I grabbed the first job I got. It so happened that it led me into this line, and I enjoyed what I was doing, and I continued doing it, and it took me places. I mean, I was probably lucky to be at the right place at the right time when the television evolution was happening. I was one of the first members of the Star TV, launching Star TV in India. I was the 7th employee of the company. I joined as a sales manager. I went on to become the executive vice president in the company. I spent 10 years. So things happen, but you have to do what you enjoy. And don't change companies or jobs for 20% hike, 30% hike. Titles and money and all will come automatically. You have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to first give to the companies. The company should feel, see, one thing, please keep in mind, no boss or no company will want to lose a good person. So you have to make yourself valuable to the company, then the company will value you and you will get your worth.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Can we have, I think we can see Sagar. Pragya, can we have Sagar Bhandari's question?
Yeah, Sagar, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. I think, meanwhile, he's just unmuting himself and taking care of the technical part. We have other question.
Was Maithili able to join us? Who was?
Yes. She has joined us.
We can pick Maithili because I heard her name, and then I think because of.
Yeah.
Kailash, is it
Yes.
okay for me to just switch on the AC?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If we can have Maithili, because I think she was.
Yes. So just taking note.
Right.
Yeah.
Metli, can you ask your question?
I hope my answers are making sense.
Yes, absolutely.
She's there, Pragya? Or
Just trying to connect, sir. She's just typing some.
okay.
Metli, you can ask your question.
Yes, I can ask my question.
Yes. Go ahead, Maithili.
Metli?
She was there, right?
Yeah, she's.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So my question to you is, as someone who is in writing currently, I understand that a lot of content that I write or the content that goes up can be difficult to filter out. Like, when I have to write something, I need to think about the audiences as well as what can actually sell rather than what is a great idea. So how do we know when an idea needs to be developed into the field or when we need to actually push forward what is already trending? How do we differentiate?
I wouldn't waste too much time on believing what is trending, because then how are you going to be different? Right. I would say if you have a great idea, you should have the conviction. Because if you don't have conviction in your idea, nobody else can have conviction in your idea. If you have a great idea and if you think it's a great idea, then write that story and go and sell it with conviction. One of the things sitting at the other side of the table, I can tell you, when somebody came to me and said, I've got 4 ideas, I would tell, which is the idea that you like? He said, sab achhe. I decided mentally in my mind, I don't want to do business with a person because he's peddling something to me. Go with that one story you believe in and speak with conviction. First of all, and the story will speak for itself. If it's a great idea, the person on the other side will look at it and say, it's a great idea, right? And nobody will want to let a great idea go, because end of the day, the person on the other end is also doing a job. Please remember that. They also are accountable. It's not that they can just put anything on television or tell you anything on OTT platform. So for them also, if they see a great idea, they may, okay, then work alongside you and say, this great idea, let's develop it, or let's take it to the next level. Some of these shows that we did in Viacom, where we never went through the script and all, but the decisions were made based on one-liners. Okay? For example, a show like Shakti. The one-liner was, it's the first show on Indian television on transgender. That was the one-liner. Okay? Or when we did Udaan, the one-liner was, it'll be the first show on Bandhua Mazdoor. Okay? On labor, child labor. When we did Ashoka, again, it was a one-liner, the greatest emperor, and nobody has done a television series on it. So sometimes one-liners can be a great idea. So you should be able to, one of the things I tell is, if you're going for a pitch, when you've done the story, in your mind, create a 30-second promo. That is what you're going to sell, the 30-second promo. If that opening interests the person, he will read your whole script.
Absolutely.
He or she, whatever.
Thank you. Thank you, Maithili.
Thank you.
Pragya, can we now have Sagar? I think we had Sagar.
I've got nostalgic feeling seeing your background, Kailash, your office. So many times I've come there and had chai, coffee, and samosas and poha. I'm missing that poha.
You're most welcome anytime, sir.
Except that
You can ask your question.
Hi. Hello, sir. I wanted to understand, we are seeing lots of fake news in this world, even in India currently, correct? So what are your views on how India or world can tackle it from a media perspective?
Very difficult. Digital platforms.
Because social media has become one of the major sources of communication to the young generations nowadays.
Yeah. See, one of the things is what I recommend everybody is, when you get a WhatsApp message, before you forward it, fact check it. First thing, because you otherwise are party to disseminating fake news. You're saying fake news ho raha hai, magar your party to also spreading fake news. So first, so one of the things you do is when you get a forward, fact checking, and there are enough fact checkers. Okay, that's one. Two is when you see a tweet or an article, don't read the headline and retweet. Read the full story before you retweet. That's that small little lesson, but otherwise you'll see the headline and the story will be something else, and then you'll regret why did you retweet it. Okay, that's a thing. But in a democracy where there's freedom of speech, there's only so much little you can do. But I think social platforms like a Netflix, not Netflix, or Facebook or a Twitter, they haven't been actually implementing it with the same rigor that they've been talking about. But there is an opportunity. If they really want, they can weed out anything that's too negative. They can have some policies which is too negative. And one simple thing which I've also tweeted to the CEO of Twitter, saying that just verify the handles. Half your problem will go away. Just verify all handles. Why do Raj Nayak need a blue tick? Make everybody blue tick. Simple. Everything will go away, because then today what is happening, one of the reasons trolls and all are happening is because you're hiding behind a mask. You're hiding behind a false identity. Or if you don't want to do blue tick, green tick, whatever it is, do KYC. See, when you're registering for banks, you do KYC, right? So if you want to open a Twitter handle, do a KYC, Facebook handle, do a KYC, link it to your email or link it to something. So then what happens is, I will be very careful of what I say, because I can be held responsible. Right now, it's a free for all. I can open 10 fake accounts and tweet what I want and get away with it. Unless it's a serious crime where the state or the law decides to investigate, then they can find you anyway. But I'm saying otherwise you get away with it and nobody gives a shit. But so my thing is, companies like Facebook, Twitter, they can. I mean, Facebook, I think, does it. There is a verification, but I think Twitter, they need to do verification. They need to do that. And when it comes to news channels, I think you can. I'm completely against regulation where you curb what people say, but there could be certain checks and balances, because free speech should be allowed. I'm a big believer in free speech, but there could be checks and balances saying that certain things you can't do. When an investigation going on, you cannot reveal the identity of the person. You can't do media trial. You can't do these things. Those kind of things can happen. And also certain decorum and how a debate is conducted or things like that. I'm sure if somebody puts their head to it, you can come out with a framework which does not restrict freedom of speech, but yet ensures, one of the things is, first part of news journalism is, and at least in the olden days, you verified it from one source, cross-checked it with another source, and then you went on air. And the problem today is people go on air without verifying it in the whole thing that I want to be first.
The breaking news.
And then when they know it is false, they don't even come and apologize. They move on to the next story and move on, unless, of course, there's a court order or something. Now, for me, that doesn't say good about a channel, because end of the day, you can't fool your viewers. I mean, you need to give your viewers some respect.
Absolutely.
You need to give your viewers some respect. Maybe you made a mistake. Come and own that mistake. Because viewers will love you more for it. And that's my take on it. But yeah, I mean, these are challenging times and there are no easy answers.
Yeah, I completely agree. Once I was in a conversation with the Twitter India head and through my platform, and I was like that, it's very easy for anyone to tweet that there is a flood in a particular area, and that gets retweeted. Yeah. Retweeted, shared, until an official announcement comes that, this is a fake news or this is not the real condition. It is your wo jo kahavat hai, that wildfire. It catches like wildfire. And social media is there for a benefit. Print, you come to know 24 hours later. Television, okay, you need to be at home or you need to have that access to television set. But you just have this with you and you have news all over. And without any regulation, like television, sir, there is regulation. Press, there is a regulation. But without any regulation, this is something which, I mean,
And
can be really dangerous at times.
the same people, when they get to know the right thing, don't retweet again.
Don't retweet again. Don't retweet.
I have a very simple funda. When somebody sends me a WhatsApp message and I read it and I know it's not true, I write back and say, this is not true. Please send it to the person who sent you, hoping that it will go back the whole chain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Pragya, can we have Akshita? I can see Akshita Agarwal here.
Yes, we have Akshita. Akshita, you can ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. So my question is regarding as a fresher who is, trying to get into the advertising industry, how would you define the boundaries for responsibility and authority for a fresher in their job expectancy? How much should a fresher work out of passion, and when and where should they hold back?
Two things money can't buy. One is integrity and one is passion. Okay, so let me get that. But if you're passionate about something, I would say you should take it up, but then you can't live on love and fresh air. Okay, so as long as you feel that you're being valued, as far as you believe that you're being respected, you're not being shortchanged, and you're learning in the process, then you should do it. The day you feel that you're being undervalued, or when I say undervalued, it's also in many ways, not just monetary, in many ways. Okay, if you believe that you're not learning, you feel that you're not getting the right recognition or the right respect, then you should move on. But otherwise, if the organization is giving you, you see, one of the things is, like I say, don't chase only money. Look at everything else. Are you learning? Is it a great place for learning? That's also a thing, that because they're paying you money and they're teaching you. Remember that you're not going to college, right? Mm-hmm. It's another way of looking at it. They're paying you and they're teaching you. So you have to look at all the benefits and then say, yeah, I'm learning, I'm being valued, I'm not being shortchanged, and they respect me, they recognize me, and you're passionate and you enjoy and you love what you're doing. That's what you should do.
But sir, then can't it be a little risky to always have 100% belief in yourself?
If you don't have belief in yourself, then who will have belief in you? How can you expect me to have belief in you if you don't have belief in yourself?
Absolutely, yes.
So, sir, how would the learning process happen then at the same time?
No, first you have to believe in yourself. Learning, see, when I used to hire people, and this is something I learned from my ex-bosses, I actually didn't look for anything. I used to look only for two, three things. One is integrity, first most important. Second was, I don't know, integrity, character comes same, but I would say attitude and aptitude. Because everything else can be taught. Unless you're getting into some rocket science kind of a thing, building some spaceship in NASA. But if you're in advertising or marketing or sales, these things can be taught, and you learn more on the job than in the classroom. Right? So you have to first have belief in yourself, and you should take up something where you feel within yourself, you feel you're enjoying what you're doing, you're loving it, and then things will happen. The beauty is you can't plan saying A to B. Things don't happen that way. Reality is things don't happen that way. There could be a traffic jam on the link, C-link, and you'll have to come back and go via Mahim. You'll have to do that. So the way for you to look at it is, yeah, you have a vision and you say, this is what I want to do, but life has its own ups and turns, and you'll set out to do something, you'll end up doing something else. But that's reality of life, and at every stage you have to accept it. The day you accept, you will never be unhappy.
Life has decided its own script for you.
Exactly. Very true.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Akshita. Thank you so much. Pragya, can we have the next question, please? We'll have just one more question because we are due with our time.
So the question is on the brainwashing due to social media exposure. So this is a similar question that sir has answered, and where we can draw the boundaries and responsibilities among people. How can we do that?
nobody can wash your brain.
Hmm.
They have no access to your brain. The only person who has access to your brain is you.
Hmm.
So if you decide you won't let your brain be washed, nobody can wash it for you. And that goes for everybody else. But the thing is, ironically, we say people get brainwashed. We put the blame on somebody else. He brainwashed me. I mean, he didn't brainwash you. You let yourself be brainwashed. Okay, so that's very simple. And yes, there is toxicity. Now we have to, as a community, as individuals, we need to do our bit to try and see how we get rid of the toxicity that is there in our own little way. We can do. I firmly believe that if you can change one person next to you to think rationally, to think more humanely, if each one does one, the power of one, I'm a big believer in that. But where you are concerned, nobody can brainwash you because your brain, only you have access to it. And unless you go to a hospital and some doctors have access, surgeons have access to it, nobody can brainwash you.
Absolutely. So it is about your, and I link this to what you said about integrity.
Of course.
Like one of the things that money can't buy is your integrity. And if you have that kind of integrity and you feel that this is something which, is crossing the boundaries and I better not share it, broadcast it or whatever in that particular format, then naturally a person will look at it that ways. So before signing off, we'd like all to know about your new venture, which is House of Cheer.
Okay, I'll try and keep it short. So House of Cheer is something that it wasn't very planned or something, it happened by default. I decided that I don't want to take up another corporate job. And to be very honest, there weren't some great corporate jobs that were lining up or something. So I decided that I'll do something different. And so I said, first, I need a space to sit. It's another matter. If I had known I could work from home, I wouldn't have gone and invested in an office space paying rent. Okay, but like I said, life has its own script, right? So I spent a lot of money. I'm still paying rent. I'm stuck with a 3,000 square feet office. But the thing is, we launched House of Cheer with a clear intent, first to spread cheer and happiness in this world. That's why the name House of Cheer. So everybody's lives we touch, we need to make them happy. One of the criteria for people who join House of Cheer is that they have to be happy people. We said, हमारे पास बहुत मोहब्बत है, पैसा ज़्यादा नहीं है, पर मोहब्बत है. But if we grow with the organization, sky's the limit. So they have to be happy. So House of Cheer has 3 divisions. It's create, curate, and consult. So we do a lot of consulting work. I wouldn't say a lot of consulting work now, but we used to do a bit of consulting work. We also now have launched a product called happiness.me, happyness.me. You can Google it and you'll go to our website. We have created our own framework because one of the things I realized when I quit my job. I had a corner office. I had a 7-figure salary. I had a title, and yet I quit my job. I couldn't put a pulse to it why I quit. But later when I realized I was just not happy, and that's when I quit. Okay, I probably was also at the stage of my career where I could afford to quit. A lot of people may not be able to do that. It's different stages in your life. And then I realized that if I'm able to build a business of happiness, then there is something going there. So our consulting division has launched this. It's a proprietary model. Companies have been always measuring people, engagement surveys and this and that, measuring what people think. Nobody has measured what people feel. And science has proven that 80% of your decisions are taken with your emotive brain and not your cognitive brain. Your cognitive brain justifies the decision you have taken.
It reasoning to it.
It gives reasoning to it. And so we put a whole framework. It's a proprietary model. We tied up with a human insights company, global human insights company from the UK, called the Happiness Index. And we measure the happiness quotient of corporates. Again, ours is very unique model. It's not just a dashboard for the management. It's also for each individual in that organization. They will be able to see where they stand vis-a-vis the organization. So once we do the diagnostics, we recommend strategy as to what they need to, to fill those gaps, to create a very flourishing, happy culture. And that's something that we have started. And soon, maybe either 1st of Jan, or maybe I would rather say 1st of April, because I don't see these things changing dramatically in the next 6 months. We will launch House of Cheers Studio, which will obviously, it's a studio model where we will probably bring out some content in various forms, whether it's podcast, television, OTT, and things like that.
Sure. So it's the entire underlining message is that you have to be happy. And when you're happy, you can be more passionate at your work. And that's how you will give out good results at the end.
Nobody can make you happy. Keep this in mind. Only you can make yourself happy. People can teach you. People can tell you how to make you happy. It's like making a horse drink water. You can walk with the horse to the riverside, but the horse has to decide to drink. Same thing goes for you. You have to decide to be happy. If you decide to be happy, nobody can stop you.
Yes. So with this note that only you can decide for yourself that when you want to be happy and it's in your hands, we take a goodbye from this episode of Masterminds. Thank you so much, Mr. Nayak, for joining us. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
No, the pleasure has all been mine, and I'm so glad you called me. It was lovely to interact with this young. I wish I could see all their faces and interact with them, but that hopefully someday. But thank you very much. Thank you, Kailash.
Thank you, Mr. Nayak, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for taking part in such an agile manner and asking your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Nayak. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Jai Hind.